word had come to us, and Josue has it here. And again, I'm not saying this to draw credit. I just want to put it out there because it's out there. So Marcus apparently was on.
Let's see how many y'all backpedal. Go ahead.
Huh?
No, I want to see how many you guys backpedal.
No, not one bit. What I will say is I will defend one person in this thing, but Marcus Smart actually calls out the Garden Report by name in a post-game interview with Max, talking about his on-the-ball defense. It's been brought up on this show before that Marcus he's not regularly assigned the other team's really quick, jittery, two-guard, top scorer sort of person, and we've talked about whether or not Marcus is that kind of guy. I don't think he's been that kind of guy for a couple of years, despite the fact that he's Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's much better guarding bigger physical guys or out of position. We saw the job he did on Zion the other day. He still draws tough assignments, but whether or not he's able to stay in front of really quick, jittery, score first guards, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it's really ever been the case, truthfully. But that came to his attention in some way, and he flat out said, and I think he attributed it to Sherrod. Well, I don't think Sherrod has said that, but Sherrod might have been part of a conversation about that that's BS.
I thought he was the one that said the shiftier guards, though, if I'm not mistaken.
I remember
responding directly to Sherrod. Sherrod said, with the shiftier guards, I'm not quite sure he can stay up with them.
So
I agree with that. I agree with that, but the
I've said that a lot, so I'm going to eat it. I've said it a bunch before Sherrod started coming on the show. That's true. It's possible Sherrod said it himself, but I don't remember.
John, you've been saying that since last year. That's true.
Is there a quote or something, or
I don't know where he got it. But
Jimmy's all scared. Look at Jimmy.
No, I feel like I'm out of the loop. I don't
know. You went in on Marcus, bro. You went in on.
No, he's asking. Do you have sound or a quote from Smart?
The bad news is he watches the Garden Report, so watch what you say, Jimmy.
No, I just didn't know if we had sound on it.
You're gonna love Marcus now.
No, my opinions won't change. I mean, we've talked about Marcus a million times. I think he's great at what he does, and listen, what we say won't determine what Marcus Smart's role or career arch is here in Boston. So
no, he plays better, Matt. Yeah. We might get credit for this.
Friday night was his best defensive game of the year. Remember,
best defensive game. What did Marcus do? He played phenomenal defense and he didn't shoot a lot. If we're gonna eat that one, and that's the Marcus Smart you get the rest of the year, we'll eat it. We'll take it.
What about what I was talking about when we started the show? The fact that he's been taking over the point guard duties and doing a damn good job at it. I mean, like. For the things that he does bad, it's just like I feel like most Celtics fans, not just you, John, a lot of Celtics fans, they just completely forget all the other stuff. And it's just like, well, wait a minute. Because the team isn't 500, okay, yeah, I can understand your frustration, but who's the bigger scapegoat than Marcus Smart? Since last year, everything falls on Marcus. He just comes back, and then they drop a couple games. Oh, Marcus is doing that shooting thing again. It's just like, well, wait a minute. That's part of the problem, but it's not the whole issue here. That's not like get him out of town issue, right? It's not that serious. It's not that deep.
Our comments were pretty glaring about him too because of his notoriety as a phenomenal defender. But we've talked about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown as well, who while they haven't honed their reputations in on being all-world defenders, were crucial defenders on this being a top 5 defense last year, and they have slipped as well. So you can say Smart, Brown, and Tatum. All 3 of them have slipped because of the bigger offensive load that they've taken on. That usually happens in the NBA. Right. It's just a natural thing. Kawhi Leonard, if you look at Kawhi Leonard these last 2 years, he has not been a very good defender, and he's known as the best defender in the universe.
You see that. You see it based off of assignment choices. The last time they played Kawhi, he's not guarding Tatum.
Yeah. No, and that's and that's, it's all this blame we're placing on everybody's a little imperfect because should Smart be the third option on the team like he has been for most of this year? Probably not. He should be on the bench and fixating on defense. But because of the roster that Danny Ainge put in place, that's the role that he had to take on. So, it's not us just drilling Smart saying he's being lazy or, he's not even physically the defender he is in the past. We know he's capable of it. But on this team, in this current role, a fact is a fact. He just hasn't been the same defender this year.
No. Fine.
Yeah, fine. I mean, listen.
That's fact.
Yeah, but it's not get him out of town type of level, though.
We're not. But
he's a polarizing player. Look, he's always been a polarizing player, Josue, because his value supposedly transcends the numbers or what you see, or it's based on intangibles. Right. And that's where always, no matter what, that argument's going to go, because you're going to see its stat lines, you're going to see shooting percentages, you're going to see those games where he's, jacking tons of threes, games where he has lapses, he has a 3-point friggin' heave the other day and then breaks down, the next 3 plays after that, and the Celtics kind of fought, go in the tank against New Orleans. There's a lot of there. He's a polarizing figure because of, look, I mean, we're not talking about, people forget about Marcus Smart a lot of times, like the waves they've ridden with him as an organization over the years. I mean, there was times where the question was, can you keep this guy around anymore? And obviously he's righted that ship, and he's kind of taken on the role of like the spiritual, and emotional leader on the team. But I mean, this guy's been all over the map with it. And then you throw in inconsistencies and inefficiencies. He's a lightning rod. He's always been, he always will be, till years after he's gone. That's not going to change.
Yeah, no. But okay, let me ask you this, John. How many times have you mentioned that he's all NBA defense? How many times have you ever on this show mentioned it?
I've mentioned it to talk about whether or not it's legit. Yeah.
No, well, no, not even. You didn't even mention it. You just talk about he's regarded as his defensive god, but never once do you mention his biggest accolade. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's where I'm getting at, John. Like it's just like people, it's easy to forget because you're so to speak in your feelings about this team. What's wrong with this? What's wrong? Oh yeah, Marcus again. And so yeah, that's on the list, but it's a long list of things that's with this team.
But that's
and Smart was out forever too. Let's not forget that he was out for like over 20 games.
No one talks about that.
No, but listen, the issue that people have with Smart is not. Listen, his defense isn't the issue. You can say that you can say that maybe it hasn't been up to par with what we've seen in the past, and maybe he doesn't make All NBA defense this year. I don't know, but the issue is when the shots start to go up in numbers and they're not falling, and sometimes he might make a pass that maybe he shouldn't have made, a little, extra, boneheaded play, something like that. That's what frustrates people. It's not people getting mad at him because of his defense.
Nobody.
It's people saying, why is he taking 16 shots? That's when people get upset with him.
Yeah, but then it's like when you're in the middle of an argument and it's like, and you know what? On top of everything, you're not even that good at defense. You know what I mean? Like that's been the narrative. That's what people say now.
You got to stick with the facts on it. What we're saying is he the guy who is locking down another like dynamic scoring guard game after game? You give him that assignment and he chases that guy around all game.
I get what you're saying.
How many 40-point games from from scorers did the Celtics eat this year? You're literally pointing out that you can still be good at defense and not necessarily be that. And literally, if that's the criticism, which is Marcus Smart is a terrific team defender. He can guard lots of different positions, so his defensive versatility is a huge asset. But the one knock on him defensively, where I think he gets more credit than he necessarily deserves, is he's not locking down the other team's best player on a night-in, night-out basis. And you've had a lot of guys go for 40 against the Celtics team. So if you have a guy, and we've said that about Jalen too, if these guys are supposed to be real defensive stoppers, you shouldn't be eating as many of those games. And I understand it's team defense. That's the criticism. Nobody's saying he's not a great defender. Of course he is. He does a million different things defensively. We're literally talking about one aspect of his game on the defensive side.
That's the other side of it too. It's not going to be one guy who's shutting down another player in this defense.
It's a team thing.
That's just not how it works. And that's how Avery Bradley started to slip on the end a little bit too, because he was trying to make up for Isaiah, and there was a lot of switching and a lot of handoffs and stuff. So again, this defensive meltdown, it's not about Smart. It's about Tice early on this year, and Thompson certainly, who wasn't doing a good job, and Tatum and Brown. Like, everybody's been involved in this. Grant's been a disaster. Like, it's just a whole team failure on the defensive end, and I think that's probably why Smart gets frustrated with this, because he knows that. And when you start pointing out individuals within this, it can get a little bit touchy. I mean, we can talk about Kemba too. Like, at the end of the day, he's just not a great defender because of his size, and it is what it is. They attacked him early in this one,
hard,
and he got hammered. Yeah. So you can give him credit for his positioning and all that, because again, this team plays team defense. It's switching, it's handoffs, it's all that stuff. No one.
It's all switching anyway, so it doesn't really matter who you're starting on and this and that. This is a small. Again, this is a nitpicky.
If If the Celtics played like tear through the screens and like stay with your man and, had Smart face guarding Jamal Murray or whoever it is in games, you might see a different result for Smart. He might actually be capable of locking down in that way, but it's tough in today's league. Like the league, even since like Marcus Smart came in the league has changed so much. We talk about that all the time, and you have to like sacrifice a little bit now in the individual pieces because teams can just so easily get Smart off of Murray or whoever else. I don't know who would be in this game, Rozier, and get Rozier onto Kemba. Like they can do that at will. And so that's where it gets tough for great guards like Smart who want to D up a guy one-on-one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Smart's an emotional guy, so he's gonna, if he, if you could, it's like anybody else in the world. You say 100 great things about them, and then one bad thing. They're only gonna think about the one bad thing. So
but we still, Smart gets a lot of criticism.
Oh,
from a
I
lot
know,
of
but just
fans and
in
media
general, though,
He's like I said, he's a lightning rod type of guy.
His shooting's a big one.
Smart is the least. Like I said, is of all of the things, as Josue said, that people pick on with Smart, whether it's this show, this chat, general media, fans on Twitter, it's not this aspect of his game. This is something that we mentioned that I don't know that he necessarily is the guy who locks down, players or is playing at the best level one-on-one defensively. That's the least criticism. Most of the stuff with Smart is the shot selection and the other thing. So yes, he definitely gets criticized for stuff. This is such a small sliver of it. And it doesn't detract from his overall defensive presence on the court. So
but again,
it's a strange thing for him to get, of all the things to get nitpicky about or for him to get upset about from the criticism. I think we saw him earlier in the year. He got really testy on the shot thing, right? How many times were people asking him about it? And he's like, I'm a shooter. I'm going to friggin' shoot. Look, you have a guy like Smart. That's what he believes you can't be successful unless you have some type of ego, right?
Now let's defend
that. He feeds off of it,
Let's defend this a little bit too, though, because this team factually has not been a good defense this year. It's the same team, it's the same personnel, and they went from 5 to within the last month like 24th. So what is it? Is it effort? Is it engagement? Is it individuals within it? We have to consider all of this because no one on this team is going to call out individuals and they're all going to say it's a team. So you got to go down the list and start approaching everybody's role in it all, especially the best defenders who have been held to that standard over time. Like
Jalen's gotten it too, right? And Tatum, you've mentioned it. It's across the board. Yeah. It's across the board.
I just think
100%.
I think what led into that conversation, or at least how it got so heated or whatever it was, but it was this before the deadline or right after? Either way, it was about
Gordon.
Could the Celtics have exactly the Gordon? Do you make a deal? Is Marcus Smart according to Mark Murphy? Was he the deal breaker? Is he the reason why Aaron Gordon is not in the Celtics right now?
Right.
And that's what led to this whole conversation, and I think that's what we forget.
And we have reports too.
It wasn't a conversation about Marcus. What is it? Marcus isn't that good of a defender anymore. It's more of how valuable is Marcus on the Celtics compared to other teams. I think that's how the whole thing started.
Various people have reported too that Smart heard his name in rumors and did not like it. And there was word of a sit down with Ainge where Ainge said, you were never on the table. Yep. So again, this is a very frustrating time for him because it felt like he was on the verge of heading out of town.
That's what I mean. The thing with Marcus Smart getting upset about a comment about, specifically whether or not he's a, terrific on the ball defender or able to guard quick mobile guards I think is really more of a reaction to his name coming up makes you have a debate on whether or not Marcus Smart should still be here. And when that comes up, it's a full autopsy, it's an audit. Everyone spends all the time talking about what you do and don't do and whether it's worth you being traded or not. And the people who want to make the trade are going to point out all of your warts. And that's why people hate having their names come up in trade discussions, because then everyone sits here and says, I'm all set with it. If consensus, and we saw it building both in you saw Twitter polls in our chats, people were ready to go. Yep. Let's move on from this guy, even though people love him and they think he's a heart and soul player and they think he's a one-of-a-kind guy. It seemed
and that wasn't right. Yeah.
It seemed like the vibe was, it's about time to move on here. And when you start to hear that stuff, that sucks.
Well, it was more like, if it happens, if it happens, it happens. I think people were resigned to the fact that it could have happened, and
People, and people probably should have labored over it a little more. I think people get caught up in that deadline flurry. They want to see action. They want to see players flipping here and there. And you don't even get into the fact that you can make a trade and make yourself worse. And I labored over that one for days and days. I still haven't even decided over it. Because, again, what's Gordon? We can pick Gordon's game apart for days and days.
It was anybody's game apart.
Yeah, it wasn't a no-brainer at all. And again, I think we were all in a similar place on that one. Like, it might be a good idea just given where Smart is, but man, you could rip Smart out of this room and just watch the house fall.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And that was my main point. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe he's not locking down the Kyrie Irvings of the world or whatever, this year, but it's the culture. He's the anchor of the defense, and it's a culture that starts and ends with him. It's not sure they struggled a bit when he wasn't there. Sure, yeah, they did win some games as well, but I just think all of that, again, that value is not the same on another team. It's exclusively for the Celtics, and hence why he has the team-friendly deal. It all lines up.
Bad team defense, bad all year with him here. Bad when he was gone. It's just not been good.
There's other stuff too, though. I mean, we think about his fiery personality, his ability to call guys out. He's going to be the guy who freaks out in the room. I don't think anyone else in that room is going to do that. We talk about Brad, that not being Brad's role. So if you pull him out of that and you bring in another guy in Gordon, that's another intangible loss for the team.
Again, what have we talked about where you lose with Smart if you made this trade? It's you don't have another playmaker right now, and right now you have to have him out there distributing because nobody else is doing it.
Especially with Kemba's condition.
So you have to. And two, that kind of motivator guy. What are the two knocks on the team right now? Nobody's getting them the ball, and so they need a little kick in the ass because they come out with low energy. That's Smart's job. So when you're talking about trading him, you're giving up two things that you desperately need in the moment, which is what made the Gordon conversation a difficult conversation, which is, yeah, Gordon seemingly has the type of skill set and a player that you're looking for, but they don't have anybody who can simulate what Smart does for the team. And if you remove it, you're losing. How much are you losing? It could be a ton. You might not really notice it, and then you move on, and that's that.
Right.
But that's the debate. That's all. That's the debate.
Credit to Danny Ainge too, though. They got the player in the position they needed. They got it for very cheap, and they retained Smart and all their picks into the future, which is all you could ask for. Like, this team was begging for an upgrade. They got one. It's working out so far, and now they get to keep Smart. They get to keep these picks to use in future deals. I came out of that deadline absolutely thrilled, even though they didn't get the Gordon thing done.
I feel better about it now after watching Fournier the last couple of days. But again, you want to see it high level. It's less about the player and more about what happens next with the next year and how much you pay for them. And like I said, re-signing Smart, extending Rob and doing Fournier. That's a lot of money you're going to have to pay just to keep this team together. I don't know how much closer it gets you to a championship. So it's less about the player. I do want to see Fournier do it against better teams.